This program is brought to you by Globals.
Tougher global migration policies. What fit for the future global intersection? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this other edition of your discursive and knowledge sharing program. It is a Global Insight brought to you by Globus. And today we are looking at the consequences of the new migration policies adopted by countries, particularly in the European Union and elsewhere around the world, looking at how this is going to affect international cooperation at the social level, also looking at the economic consequences of these migration policies and why there is this major shift of policies patterning the issue of migration and how this will actually counteract the laws governing immigration or issues pertaining to migration that is under the United Nations or other rights bodies. And of course, today's episode of Global Insight now invites us to understand in greater details the peculiarities of these migration policies and how it is helping to bring about political changes, and can we say it is a shift in the in terms of ideologies. Now we are going to analyze like from the EU's pact on migration and asylum, which actually seeks to fortify borders and expedite deportations, to Argentina's recent measures that mimic the restrictive narratives polarized in the United States. Governments are actually employing tougher stances on migration that raise pressing questions about human rights, international cooperation, and the socio-economic impact on global communities. So today's discussion, we are going to actually analyze the root causes of the migration, asking why there is a major shift in these or towards the policies shifts that are becoming more actually harder than what we experienced in the last years. And together with a panel of experts, we're going to enter into the details of such shifts in narratives pertaining migration laws, especially among countries in Europe. And I will join you to unveil the panel right after the jingle. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you are just tuning in, you're on to your Pan-African media, and this is Global Insight proposed to you by Globals. We're taking you straight away to the United States of America, precisely to Washington, D.C., where we're being joined by Mr. Ashil Eke, who is a corporate finance expert and also the CEO of Valuation, Washington Valuation Center. You're most welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Clarice, for the invitation. It's the Washington Valuation Group. It's a topic that is very decisive in this new century, the topic of immigration or migrations in general. We see a lot of countries around the world tightening their policies on migration or immigration, making it harder for people to come into their countries. Some are very protectionist, like the U.S. It's with the new government led by President Trump. European Union is trying to do the same with the new laws and new legislation that has been passed to reduce the migrations within European unions. So all these things are things that are showing that there's a significant shift in the world today that is impacting everybody, and we need to figure out what is happening and how to overcome these. So thank you for the invitation. This topic is very interesting, and I look forward to discussing with my co-panelists.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving importance to it, Mr. Eke. It is very important because it has to do with humanity. And it is a pleasure for us also to welcome Professor Jagdish Khatri, author, speaker, and global analyst who is joining us from India. You're welcome to Global Insight this day, Professor.
Thank you, madam. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks to Globus also. And this is a really very important topic because the way things are happening all around the world, not only in one continent, but all around the world, there is hardening of stance on with regard to migrants. But I would like to take an overall view, and I would like to say that there are three M's which are held responsible for everything. If there is a law and order problem in a country, so these three are migrants, minorities, and marginalized people. If there is a rise in crime, rise in unemployment, economic conditions are bad in a country, they are the soft targets for the governments and the other agencies, or once again, the migrants, minorities, and the marginalized people. Now, it's not only the forced displacement, even in internal displacement, these three are the most vulnerable sections of society. So, they need to be seen from a more humanitarian point of view rather than being seen as a children of lesser God. So that's what I feel, that we need to really understand it from a humanitarian point of view while not ignoring the national security and other aspects also. Thank you very much for this invitation. Thank you.
And I also want to thank you for giving importance to discussion like this as we continue to edify the global world on some of the very pertinent issues that warrant our actually interest to see how to continue to shape a future that is inclusive. If you're just joining in, you are most welcome. And we are going to be joined subsequently by Kim Paul and also Steve Gill from the United States of America. But then let's go to understanding the maybe contextualizing our discussion this day with you, Mr. Ashil Eki, by trying to understand what migration is all about, especially in the 21st century, and also highlighting some key trends of migration or policies which have actually been a call for concern in contemporary global intersection.
Right. So the tightening of global migration policies raises profound questions about justice, equity, and shared humanity, especially when viewed through the Pan-African lens that we are here. Across Europe, for example, or North America, and even some parts of the global South, we see that border controls are becoming more militarized and very selective, often targeting migrants from different parts of the world, especially Africa and the Middle East, under the pretext of security or labor efficiency. Yet these restrictive measures ignore the historic and structural causes of migration, many of which are rooted in the legacy of colonial exploitation and contemporary economic dependency. So, from the Mediterranean tragedies, claiming thousands of African lives annually, to the European Union's deals with transit countries like Libya or Tunisia, for that matter, to outsource migration control, the message is clear, right? So wealthier nations are willing to finance exclusion rather than inclusion. So similarly, the United States southern border approach, while focused on Latin America, signals a growing global trend toward fortification, building walls, rather than cooperation. So from a Pan-Africanist perspective that I am, these policies highlight the unfinished struggle for autonomy, for freedom, and dignity for those people, for Africa, for those migrants. Africa's youth, for example, migrate not out of choice, right, but necessity. It's driven by inequality in the global economic order that we have today. And this is why a lot of frustration comes from these BRICS countries. So the fate of global migration depends on whether nations can switch or pivot from punitive control to real, genuine partnerships, meaning investing in equitable trade, industrialization and education within the entire global South. So we looked at Rwanda's innovation, for example. It's a hub, that we see today, and even Ghana's diaspora, it's very engaging. They have very engaging initiatives that show how, intra-African cooperation, could create hope, in many countries, in Africa, that will reduce the push factor of migration. And we also can notice the visa, the requirements, the non-visa requirements that many countries are applying today as policies in Africa. Many countries are doing away with visa requirements. So the future must not be one of walls and detention centers, but of rethought or reimagined mobility based on mutual respect. Now, if the 21st century is to be just, then Africa's right to move, to build, and to thrive must be recognized as intrinsic to humanity's collective progress.
Okay, thank you so much for the introductory remarks pertaining our topic for discussion, Mr. Ashil Eki. Subsequently, we're going to enter into the complex analysis of the topic and why it is an issue in contemporary society. And getting the preliminaries from you, Professor Jagdish Katwe, what can you say, probably a personal appraisal or experience that highlights a real-life impact of current migration policies on individuals?
When we talk of migration, we must not only see post-migration, but there are 4 types of migrations. One is internal migration within a country.
Yeah.
So from rural to urban, or from one urban place to another urban place, people are moving. The second one is external migration, where the people want to shift to another country out of their choice. And third is voluntary organization, migration, where people are in search of good quality of life, good housing, good education, income level. So that's why they choose. And the fourth one that is most dangerous is the forced migration, which may be due to wars and conflicts, natural disasters, or sometimes out of political pressure also. So these four types of migrations are there, but whether it is internal or whether it is forced one, once again I would like to say that the migrants are the soft targets for now in the present society. What we see is toxic debates happening on TV and other places about which are anti-migration, anti-migrants. And whenever there is some crime happening somewhere in Europe or in US, so search is on for that. That must be from some global South people only, or Latin American or African people only. So that is a dangerous trend that we have statements from the top leaders also saying that these undocumented migrants, they are criminals and they are going to poison our blood, they are going to take our jobs, and they are going to catch and eat our pets also. So this is the kind of rhetoric that we are witnessing in present day world, and which is just poisoning the minds of people, which was not the case 2 decades back. So I mean, somehow these rhetoric explanations, they are also responsible for anti-migrants attitude that we are seeing nowadays.
Bringing us, of course, to this juncture, analyzing the implications of such a shift to the global cooperation, especially when we have to highlight people-to-people diplomacy and how these contemporary harsh migration policies actually impeding that maybe derailing the trajectory. And just to note that Kim Pohl has joined us at the moment. She's a founding fellow of the Teaching Artists Institute and joining from the United States of America. We are welcome to the program today. And we are talking migration. And what is your appraisal, Kim, pertaining the harsh stance? Is that coming from the European Union, or is it from particular countries like the United States of America and the United Kingdom, among others?
Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate this conversation. I think as a Pan-African media, television, and in the context of our discussion, it's important at this time in history that we take a step back and we take a step in and we look at what is happening within our own borders, what is happening within our own nation states. As a Black woman living in the United States, I first acknowledge my ancestors, an incredible book, The Warmth of Other Suns. It speaks to the largest migration of people globally, which were my ancestors living in the South of the United States as a result of generations of oppression in the transatlantic enslavement trade. And when they eventually sought freedom and were successful, they began to migrate out of the South, moving into industries in the north and the western regions of the country. And so now we're at another phase in our history as Black people living in the United States, realizing that we too sing Africa. We are also Africans living in America, and as a result, we should look towards a borderless Africa, one that is inclusive of us. In 2003, the African Union decided that they would write and legislate Article 3Q, which identified Black people living not just in the United States, but outside of Africa, in Europe, and in Brazil, and in the Caribbean, any region of the world outside of Africa where Black people were found, they were considered the sixth region. And as a result, for the past 20 years, they've been trying to actualize and add teeth to what that definition truly means. And what we've decided in the diaspora is that it means we have a borderless Africa, one that is accessible to us in spite of the barriers of visa. As someone that carries a blue passport, they see it as a benefit in some regions. But for us traveling and interested in traveling within the mother country,
Unfortunately, we lost Kim, and she will be joining us subsequently. If you are just tuning in, you are most welcome. And from the preliminaries of that we actually heard from our esteemed panel, we now want to ask very pertinent questions of understanding why there is this major shift and how we can curtail the root causes of migration. Coming back to you, Ashil Eke. Now, what do you think are the key drivers behind the recent, hard shift towards tougher migration policies in countries, particularly in the AU and the US? And how is this, from the economic point of view, how is this going to affect probably the economic, the economies of the respective nations, given that today we are talking about migrant crisis, but then before independence, we know of slavery and slave trade that happened, and we can not also undermine the role that migrants play in the building of the countries that are today known as superpowers, so strong nations. So how can we explain this shift and the economic ramifications of such? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for the interruption, and of course we're going to continue with the discussion, and we were with you, Mr. Ishil Eke, looking at some of these the economic ramifications of such decisions on laws governing migration, and how this is going to affect also rights group that actually cater for the rights of migrants.
From the economic standpoint, those laws that have been passed by those countries have a significant effect on the economies. The first effect is the labor shortage, right? So there are so many migrants that come to many of these North American or European countries to do a lot of work that local people, don't like to do. All right, especially in agriculture, babysitting, taking care of kids and elderly, nurses and things like that. A lot of local people don't like to deal with those. So it's a labor shortage that is the first reason for me, the first consequence for me, and also inflation, right? So the hard limits on inflow exacerbate shortages in agriculture and elderly care, like as I said, construction, the other domains, construction, hospitality, and technology, even technology that is highly rewarding. There's a shortage of those of that labor, and so that creates a lot of losses in terms of revenue for those countries. in terms of growth potential, in terms of GDP growth, it has an impact. It slows the growth of the country too, because migrants are typically young people, and so when we restrict those people from entering the country, it reduces the labor force, and it weakens entrepreneurship, growth, and lowers long-term GDPs. So that also impacts fiscality, in terms of revenue. Local governments rely on taxes to collect, to get their revenues so they can, fix their roads, fix their, their healthcare system, provide, minimum services to their citizens, to their local citizens. So in terms of taxes, there's a loss. In terms of trade as well, the losses of revenue from, people who are, let's say, if a company has a lot of orders from a foreign country that they need to satisfy, and for reasons of, migration laws and things like that, they don't have enough manpower, they don't have enough people to work to satisfy that order. Guess what? It's going to affect the delivery of those services to that foreign country. Therefore, it's going to be a lot of losses of revenue, and that's going to impact everybody, And so the confidence from the other countries from working, from working with that company is going to dwindle or disappear. They're not going to feel comfortable doing business with that company again. So because they were not able to satisfy the order that they said they could deliver. And also innovation is also another issue. It's going to have a drag on innovation. What we know is that innovation usually comes from people who have a lot of challenges. And because they have a lot of challenges, they figure out things, they figure out ways to solve, to overcome those challenges. And by doing so, they become innovative. They innovate, they bring new ideas,
Yes.
and so, if we prevent those people from doing that because we are worried about, this and that, it's going to affect innovation in the country, and the country is going to feel like, a country of old people who can innovate. And if you can't innovate, you just die, because countries that are innovating, they're going to, leave you behind. And we see that today in the United States, in Europe. We see what China is doing. We see what Russia is doing. All these innovative countries, Brazil, South Africa, a lot of African countries are doing a lot of stuff. And then we see the innovation that is happening. So those are the few consequences economically that I can talk about of those poor decisions about migration.
And of course, talking about poor decisions, and we want to also look at how these shifts are actually, orchestrated by a shift in geopolitics, or even the crisis rocking Europe. Particularly because when we look at what is happening in France, we see that most of the protests against the leadership of Emmanuel Macron, people highlighted the fact that he has given more importance to immigrants rather than French nationals, and as per them, they are actually suffering, whereas immigrants have privileges in their countries. And with this, Professor Jagdish Khatri, we want to look at the how these the harder policies coming either from governments in place, or actually other parties wanting to be at the to take the baton of command as far as political issues are concerned. Now this is how it is the shift is being orchestrated by internal dynamics in the country that are not actually favorable. How can we navigate this to ensure that there is some sort of a consensus or a compromise between the internal policies and their international policies governing migration?
Well, we welcome Steve Gilser, Scott, and about the question. You see, the globalization process meant to have a borderless world where there has to be free movement of technology, of capital, of products, of ideas, and of people. Now, it is the reversing the trend because, as I said earlier, whenever there is a lack of governance in any country and the issues are not manageable by the administration, the soft targets are three M's only, starting with migrants, minorities, and marginalized people. So this has become a trend. And we have seen that far-right parties and groups and leaders, they are rising in several parts of the world, almost in all continents. So they are just, it's a blaming game that for all the ills of a country, the migrants are responsible. So that is something that is dangerous for the unity and the humanity also, because you see in US has been a nation of immigrants. All the major corporations, they are owned by or they were founded by the immigrant families, and most of the patents, they are being filed by immigrants. So you cannot say that all the whatever economic problems are there, they are because of immigrants. Rather, immigrants are supporting the economies everywhere, and they only face all the bad remarks, toxic debates about them, but still they contribute to the country they have chosen to be in. So
Yes.
the first thing that comes to my mind is that if there is a forced displacement of people from one country to another in search of better quality of living or for security reasons, then it must reflect the failure of the local leadership, that they are not able to provide right kind of amenities, right kind of security and their own population.
Yes, I'm listening. We're listening to you, Professor Jagdish.
Yeah. So it must be seen as this thing that once, if people are happy in their own country, why they will get displaced? If there are no conflicts happening within communities, within the nation, or the wars are not there, so any war or conflict, that also reflects failure of diplomacy. So let the leadership should own it, that they are not able to have such quality of life of decent living for their own population, and that's why there is displacement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've just been informed that Steve Guild, a political commentator and an advisor to former administrations of Bush and Clinton. You're welcome to Global Insight at this time, Steve Gill. And we are discussing migration issue coming at a time when we're looking at the migrant crisis, which have been caused as a result of the turbulence in the global world. Let's take for particular example the crisis in the Middle East, the crisis between, or the war between Ukraine and the Russian Federation and elsewhere around the world. And today we are looking at how stakeholders are on the table signing a ceasefire to be able to bring about, some calmness between Israel and Palestine. But then we still see at the same time the major political shifts which are very hard on migrants, given that countries, the United Kingdom, many countries in the European Union are deriving very hard migration policies. What are the ramifications on this on global cooperation, Steve, especially in line with economic integration?
First of all, Clarice, thank you again for having me. You always assemble great panels, and it's great to see my friend Akile and Professor Khatri. Let me just first touch on one of the things that Akile said about innovation. One of the things that we see around the world is that freedom leads to innovation, and the countries that have the most freedom allow the most freedom of thought that allows for innovation. You can't think outside the box and come up with new things if you're so tightly boxed in politically, economically, intellectually. And I think that as we look around the world, how do we create more freedom in some of these countries that will allow for innovation, that will allow for creativity? Because if that is suppressed, you're not going to have either the creativity of new goods. The other thing that, as we've seen and talked about in the past, is you have to have rules of order. You have to have legitimacy of how you develop your creativity. And one of the problems that certainly the US and others have had with China in the past has been the fact that you can take a new product, a new innovation to China, and then they will steal your intellectual property. They will steal what you have developed. And the next thing you know, they're offering it at a cheaper price because they didn't have the expense of development of that product and the innovation that went into it, success and failure in developing a new product. So you have to have rules of order. You have to have ways to make sure that you're protecting the creativity of those who develop it, whether it's music. We have issues in the United States all the time where some performer will write a song, perform a song, and the next thing you know, people are performing it and aren't compensating the songwriter. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA. We generate great music, and our songwriters are a strong part of our community. But you have to protect their creativity by making sure that they get the benefits of their hard work rather than somebody simply being able to steal it. And then finally, on the issue of migration, Dr. Chaudhry pointed out that you have to have a control of your border. And I think it's always important to make the distinction between legal migration and illegal migration. You cannot simply have people violate the laws, violate the rules. You don't have any order, it becomes chaos. And then you get the resentment that we're seeing in the UK, in all the other Western countries, where the AFD in Germany, where in the UK others are rising in political power because of the resentment of those that come illegally and then get benefits in many cases greater than the legal, legitimate citizens. So I think it's important to make sure we draw that distinction between legal migration and illegal migration constantly whenever we have these discussions. Clarice, if I break into your house to steal your stuff, to hold your family hostage so I can take your stuff, that's different than if you invite me to dinner and I'm there as a guest, I'm there as a welcomed participant in the evening. And I think we have to keep drawing that distinction. By the same token, we have to make sure that we don't allow the resentment towards those who illegally migrate to create a rift in places like England or in the US or anywhere else, where how you look defines how we treat you. I mean, there are third, fourth generation Indians and African Americans and others who are in England, and they should not be treated in a racist way simply because a lot of those who are coming in illegally, quote, look like them. Looks should not determine how we treat people. Books should. The regulations and the laws. And I think that what London and England and other countries have lost is the ability to distinguish between legal and illegal migration. And that's making the whole debate much more difficult.
I will stay with you, Steve, to understanding better, because when we look at the root cause of migration, we begin to ask why I don't know if we should put it, the complexities surrounding the words legal and illegal migration. Knowing, let's take the situation in the Middle East, which I just highlighted earlier on. If should people leave because of such unbearable conditions, and find themselves in the other nations or the borders, do you consider that legal or illegal migration, and how are states policies treating such cases that people involuntarily leave due to safety or insecurity that we actually underlined lately?
Well, we certainly have situations where there are refugees who have to flee their home, whether it's because of earthquakes or flooding or warfare. And the question, I think one of the things that we have to confront in the Middle East is when we have people in Gaza who are being encouraged to leave because of the rubble that has become where Gaza is, the buildings that have been destroyed, and people are still hovering and in that rubble living because they refuse to leave because they don't trust that they will be able to come back. You can't tear down a building and build a new one as long as people are still living in the rubble. So you have to move them, but is there an assurance that they will believe that they can come back? I think that's the biggest barrier to peace in the Middle East, certainly between Israel and Gaza. These people don't trust that they're going to be able to come back, and that instead of their apartment buildings being built anew, that they will be built and then others will move into their neighborhood. And I think that trust is still the biggest barrier to finding a resolution there. But yeah, if somebody is forced out of their homeland because of the ravages, again, of natural disasters or warfare, that's different than people pursuing an economic advantage by breaking the rules to go into someone else's country when there are processes and means to do so. And let's not overlook that in many cases, countries are encouraging their people to leave and illegally migrate because it's like a safety valve that releases the pressure. Many of the hardest working, smartest, best people are leaving their countries and migrating to others where there is more opportunity because they are the best and the brightest. And they're bringing their talents to other countries where if they stayed where they were and were given the opportunity to follow the blueprint of success that other countries provide, that would put more pressure on governments to allow for those rules. For example, the areas of northern Mexico are no different than Arizona, Southern California, Texas, and New Mexico. They have oil resources. They have the same kind of geography. The only distinction is a border where north of the border, you have enforcement of laws, you have a tradition of law, and south of the border, corruption has taken such a strong hold of Mexico. If Mexico would simply follow the blueprint and get the cartels, get the violent thugs who run Mexico illegally, if they could enforce the laws, they should have the same kind of prosperity with the same hardworking people, ethical people, moral people that make up the Southwest of the U.S. There's no distinction other than what blueprint do you follow in terms of how you run your country. And by allowing people who would be best to build a Mexico that would reflect the same kind of prosperity and freedom that the U.S. enjoys, by letting them leave or by encouraging them to leave, you hurt your own ability to develop in the same way.
Thank you so much, Steve. I would love to have your comment on this, Mr. Socioeconomic. From the analysis of Steve Gill, we can see that a new diplomacy on democracy has been unveiled. And how can we analyze this shift and how it actually playing on the concept of globalization, or probably human interaction for a better defined global trajectory?
I just want to say hello to Steve.
Hey, my friend.
To be on this panel with him.
Absolutely.
I just heard his analysis, and it's I would say it's just a bias analysis. Okay, just to be nice. Okay, you know why people are migrating to Europe and to United States, right? So let's go from the origins.
Absolutely.
If you just take from what you see today and analyze that you just did, it's biased. You're giving wrong information to your students if they listen to you like that. You got to give them the background of the origins of all of this. Is why I like to listen to some of the professors like, you know, Mersheimer, other people they go deeper in the analysis. You are just on the surface. And it's not credible what you just said. You can't just say, oh, people come here, oh, they have to manage the country well, better than, other countries so they can have the same standards, same living conditions as the US. Well, you know very well. We look at what is going on around the world. All these wars. How many wars have the United States, decided to go against against its own interests, against the interests of the people in South America, of Africa, of Middle East? How many wars? Why? Because of resources. You guys need resources, so you go and get it. Just that I like President Trump. Trump is blunt. I like the way we went to Iraq, we didn't even steal their oil. We have to at least steal their oil. They left the oil over there. He was blaming Bush for that. So you have to go deeper. I want you to go deeper in the analysis, and I want to give you my time to go deeper in the analysis and explain to your students that are listening why this is happening. Why is this migration happening today that we see today? And then, come, to a different conclusion. Because what you just said is, it's a political, it's like a political hack person talking to people to convince them that, they are just coming here to get our stuff, our resources. And that is feeding into the narrative that migrants are bad people. They're leaving their places, whether it's legitimate migration or illegitimate migration, whatever word we use, there is a reason people want to leave their place. So I want the opportunity through Clarice to analyze this even deeper, because this is just the surface that you just did.
Absolutely, and that is why I brought the question to you to continue probably to substantiate or expatiate with some facts. If we should buy the idea that people migrate because of some sort of, untold tactics, like what was underlined by one of the experts, like probably, I don't know if we should use the term, stealing, innovative ideas that will try to, position a country economically at the global level. Are we using the future of vulnerable people to play a political game, Ashil Eki? Is that what is as far as these new shifts in migration policies are concerned?
Listen, I don't want to speculate. I want Gail is a bright professor, and I'm going to come to your campus. I'm going to come to your classroom. I already promised you that, because I was in Africa.
It's about us educating
yes,
the
but I want him to
out there.
the analysis.
I will come back to Steve Gill subsequently, Mr. Ashil Eki. Let me get your viewpoint, and subsequently we'll be coming
my
with
viewpoint.
Steve.
My viewpoint is that everything that is happening today has taken its root long ago in colonization, slavery, all that stuff. And it keeps happening because corruption doesn't happen by itself. Corruption is because ExxonMobil wants to get oil from Gabon, from Cameroon, from Nigeria. They're going to corrupt those people and then get the oil at the price they need. And those countries are not going to get the revenue that they deserve from that oil that Exxon have extracted. So that is going to be protected by the president, because the United States president, when the president of the United States says, if you try, we are going to starve you. No more loans to your country. So those poor countries have no leverage. So they stay poor, not because they want, because they are constrained into doing that. This is why I'm saying Steve knows that. For as an advisor to the President Bush, you know those realities, and you should tell it to your students, because I'm going to be sitting and listening to you, and that's the reason I'm going to come to your class, knowing that yes, you are honest, because that is an important aspect that you are omitting, and that is misleading your students that are listening to you right now. And that's
I
what
will
I
come back.
want.
I will come back to you subsequently, and that is why we want to find a solution on the platform proposed to us by Globus, trying to give a balanced analysis to the problem, especially problems pertaining to humanity, as we are looking at the migration problem today on the table for discussion. I think, let me come to you, Professor Jagdish, why we continue to clarify the root causes of the migration we have been highlighted earlier on. And we even said in our preamble that in the days before independence, migrants were actually seen as slaves who actually participated fully to the development of the countries which are today viewed as superpowers. And then in the 21st century, with different schools of thought emerging, and what has been defined earlier on by you, Mr. Eke, that most hardline politicians, particularly in Europe and elsewhere, are taking a more conservative or nationalist tendencies, and with policies that seem not to now be favorable to those that have been coined as migrants. With you, Professor Jagdish, how can we actually bring back on track these new policies? For example, we see, I think it should be the Labour Party in the United Kingdom vowing that if voted into office, he's going to ensure that migrants will have limited benefits, and every other those the national citizens will enjoy fully what is theirs. And then we want to look at how this is actually coming to counteract international convention on the protection of the rights of all migrant workers and members of their families living in different nations rather than their countries of origin.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there has been rise in far-right parties and fascist tendencies, and resulting into things like America first, or South Africa first, or even now, yesterday I was listening to a new political party coming up in Japan. He says Japan first. So where are we leading to? If we cannot replace humanism by nationalism, it's not a replacement. And on the one hand, we are having tougher anti-migrant policies, and on the other hand, so many countries are offering golden visa schemes for investors to come to their country, for highly skilled professionals to come to their country. So it is a realization that every country needs investments, and every country needs more skilled people. You see, we all know that India has the largest diaspora in the world. Over 18 million Indians are settled abroad, and they are all contributing to the success of their respective countries. So many mega corporations are headed by Indian people. NASA has so many Indian scientists also. So migrants, people, they are contributing. This is a fact, and every country realizes it. But only thing is that I think anti-migration sentiment is boosted more for the, as Steve Will said, for the illegal, or we can say undocumented entrants to a country. But we cannot term them all illegal entrants into a country as criminals. They must be doing their jobs. They must be working hard in some stores, in coal mines, everywhere. So let us not treat everybody as a human. Treat everybody as a human being first, and then later on as a whether legal or illegal. But only thing is that if we are witnessing a internal displacements also as well as external displacements. Just we have witnessed perhaps one of the worst cases in Israel and Gaza conflict, that we have ruined Gaza. We have killed more than 65,000 innocent people over there, more children and women also. And still now we are celebrating that ceasefire. So where are the humanitarian concerns? On one way, we are trying to give them humanitarian aid, and another time we are giving billions of dollars worth of armaments to Israel. So I mean, it needs to be a recheck on these policies, that whether we are right. We should not claim to be humanitarian if we are engaged in arms deals only as the source of our economy rising. So we have to see it from that point of view. Let us not treat all migrants as children of lesser God. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Professor Jagdish. And let's come back to you, Steve. Patterning what you said, which actually brings us to looking at the era of the Industrial Revolution and the contribution of migrants in building. Today, the Trump administration has brought a policy of make America great again. And then with your analysis of the fact that it is imperative to tighten the policies, especially against what you have called illegal migration. Let's now revisit the role played by migrants in the development at every level, especially in the informal sector of the United States of America. If today the US is a superpower, we cannot talk without highlighting the role played by migrants who were back then referred to as slaves. How can we actually bring back the compensation to the? I think it ties down to the 2025 mantra of the African Union, which of the year of reparation. It boils down still to this. Is there any justification for the harshness in the immigration policies in the 21st century?
Well, you're not seeing massive numbers of African Americans immigrating or Africans immigrating to the U.S. It is mainly from South and Central America. You're seeing huge numbers from China, who were never enslaved by anybody in the United States. And I can assure Akili that different perspectives are being shared in my classroom at Belmont University, and I look forward to him joining us. Just last week, our friend Julia Berg was a guest, and she shared from Africa a lot of the perspectives that were new to what my students were hearing, particularly because I do agree with you that so much of what has hampered African development, and it's a continent, but it's also a multiple number of countries that have different culture, different background, different challenges. But she pointed out that West Africa, most of the colonizers built train tracks to move resources from the mines to the port. Whereas East Africa, you had more infrastructure development where the train tracks, traversed the whole country, creating an infrastructure for development that West Africa was denied. So I am making sure that we're having different perspectives shared about the historical background. But I got to tell you, Akili, I trust what the South and Central and Mexican illegal immigrants are saying when they come to the US, when they say they are coming for jobs and they are taking jobs away from honest, decent, hardworking, legal citizens and legal migrants. So I believe them when they say they're coming to the US because they're seeking jobs, they're seeking to get the resources. And in too many instances, we're paying somebody who comes here illegally more than we're paying for the benefits of those who are legally in our country. But I look forward to you coming to the class and sharing your perspective on those and other issues.
And it's still very problematic. That brings us again to the international bindings, and I think it brings us, I should agree with you, to now look at the role played by rights organizations that they can play at this particular juncture, patterning the new shifts in immigration policies. If the rationale behind it is because migrants or people from other countries are actually taking jobs that were meant for legal or the rightful owners of the nation. So how can we now change this rationale for future better human intercession or co-relationship, which I think is very primordial?
Okay, so we are witnessing the birth and the growth of BRICS today, right?
Sure.
So what is happening is BRICS is taking now about 40% of GDP of the global economy in the world. Population-wise, too, they are growing. They are the biggest bloc now compared to the G7. And so Africa is moving ahead, building alliances with BRICS members, and they're growing the economies. And what we see in Europe is the downfall. For example, France is suffering so much. So we are seeing a trend that is being reversed. And there is a panic that you hear all the time in France about, oh, soon enough, we are going to be the one going to Africa to look for jobs. And I can't wait to see that happening in my lifetime and enjoy when we're going to tell them, immigration, you are illegal, guy, go back to your country. And then we're going to hear the speech of, oh, Marine Le Pen, or extreme right people saying, oh, those people are racist, oh, well, they don't want this, oh, why are they chasing us? Well, it was our forefathers who did this, it wasn't us, it's not our fault. That speech, I can't wait to hear it. Because everybody can find a good excuse to blame, migrants for coming to their countries. But do you think someone is happy to leave his own place to go to another person's place where it's cold? There isn't a better food. All this food we in the US and Europe, they are poison food with chemical stuff in there. We have grow up natural, beautiful food in Africa, in Central Africa, in India, that we want to stay and eat and be healthy. We don't need any vaccine, don't need any of that stuff. But we have to leave all that good stuff and come here and suffer, paying your bills, working hard, working to slavery. No, man, nobody wants that. So whether you are legal or illegal, everybody comes in illegally first before it becomes legal. So it's a process. So I am just waiting for that moment to come and see how they're going to react, because I see that already. A lot of people on TikTok, on Facebook, trying to say, oh, well, maybe they're going to put some barriers from us, so we don't come to the country, just like we're doing to theirs nowadays. So I say, oh, don't get scared yet. So it hasn't happened yet. We're still getting together. We have to put the foundation of our growth, our development, our industrialization, and that's going to happen in the next 10 years. In a lot of countries that are going to start industrializing, and that is going to boost growth. All the youth that we have, 70% of young Africans are under 25, 70% under 25. So that's a lot of potential there, a lot of growth, a lot of demand for all kind of product, all kind of services. So that is shifting, and that what we're observing on the field right now is a lot of shift in terms of investment, and it's growing by the day, every day in Africa. So that is the reason why I'm saying we have to be honest when we analyze situations. Don't just give half of the story. Tell the whole story from the historical standpoint to where we are today. Now you can decide at that point that okay, there is distinction between illegal and legal, and we don't want illegal because of X, Y, and Z, but we prefer this. But just blatantly saying to people that are listening to you, they're coming here to take our jobs, that is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to come and take your job. What jobs is it that is taken from you? There are a lot of jobs that Americans don't want to do because they're low-paying jobs. And we cited many of those already here. Agriculture, healthcare, nobody wants to be, few people want to be nurse. There are so many jobs. Nurse jobs pay so much today. There is no one who wants to work. There isn't enough people working in the nursing industry. Americans who are not doing that job. Europeans are not doing that job. Africans are doing it, and they're getting a boatload of dough, and they're living a high lifestyle, and that is bothering people who are staying here locally. They don't want to do the job. They don't want to clean people's mess. They don't want to, take care of old elderly people. But Africans are doing it, and they're getting paid good dough for that, and they're living a good life. And now it's bothering them, or that you're taking our job. I am the victim. I went through that stuff also when I was appointed bank manager in Southeast DC for the first time. The first year, it was hell. Everybody was, oh, why are you coming here? We'll go back to Africa. You're taking our jobs. I'm like, what? Taking your jobs? What are you talking about?
So
this position has been open for 6 months. No one wanted to apply. And I applied and they gave it to me. Now I turned that place, as a success in the whole market. That store that I handled was the best store in the whole market in Washington. The whole market going from DC to Frederick. Okay, so it's amazing when I hear people saying things like that. There are so many jobs that are paying high money, high dough, but nobody's doing it, and they're blaming immigrants that are doing it for doing it. It's insane.
And it is imperative, Mr. Ashieki.
This is what I was saying. Still, you got to go deeper in the analysis, man. When you see the surface like that, it's disappointing because people, you are a professor. You have to have the balanced view and go deeper into historical, analysis, and then bring up, what you feel should be the policy of the United States when it comes to immigration. But you're not doing it.
And that is why we're here today with you all to try to bring about a compromise and see how we can bring a solution to these problems which are directly affecting human society, human interaction, or integration. According to some report, I think it was on Wednesday, this October, that the German Parliament repealed a law that granted people of who are not originally Germans to have a citizenship. I think about after a period of 3 years, and we see such hard policies coming in. It brings us to wanting to understand perception and reality, and how all of these will actually polarize and cause the flare in the hard immigration policies. That is the situation we are facing today. We can point countries like you have Finland, we have Poland, and other countries within the EU bringing forth hard policies on immigration. And how can we then separate perception from reality, or maybe the fear of the unknown from reality, with you, Professor Jagdish, trying to give a more, people-to-people understanding of how we can manage the migration crisis to be able to co-live or co-relate for the betterment of society.
See, one particular aspect I would like to point out is that we have to differentiate between patriotism and nationalism. Patriotism is that everybody, in whatever capacity you are working for the betterment of the country that you are living in, whether you are born there or you have migrated to that country. That is patriotism. Nationalism is where we are putting one against another.
Yeah.
And that is what is calling all the injustices happening and people fighting, communities fighting with each other. So that is one thing that has to be taken care of, and somehow if we cannot promote democracy, and democracy requires humanitarian approach where everybody is equal and there are no hierarchies in a society. So these are some things that need to be clearly thought over and put into practice. Yes, every country has right to have its own migration laws.
Absolutely.
Like India, just from 1st September this year, we have put out a migrants and foreigners policy, where we have made it little stricter. But also we believe that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the whole universe is like a family. But then we cannot treat that any ills that are happening are because of migrants. That should not be the case. That is just an excuse that politicians normally put forward to divert attention from their failure to lead properly and give a decent employment and decent life to their citizens. So these are some things that have to be taken care of in a broader perspective rather than a narrow-minded isolationist approach of any country.
I think which is very imperative. It is how to see in such a way that political maneuvering actually is not at the forefront of the correlation between nations of the world. And I will take one example according to a source, a gentleman that spoke on condition of anonymity, who said it patterned the Russian Federation, given its relationship with other countries in the global south, particularly with Africa. And this organization was, it's just a case study that we want to present before we again give more clarity patterning the migrant crisis. According to this program, there is some sort of exchange between the Russian Federation and countries within the global south, particularly with young people. But then there have been some reports saying that young Africans, so maybe people from Indian origin and elsewhere, have been recruited to work in the factory in Russia, or to take them to the front line. This is a report that was highly, refuted by the people concerned, who spoke on condition of anonymity. Now it brings us again to how political climate challenges the existing human co-relationship, and we take the case study of the United States of America, still with you, Steve. From your earlier analysis, we could deduce or reach the conclusion of that the crimes committed in the U.S. are mostly, totally from migrants. Is that an assertion? And if no, and how can we allude, or what statistics allude to the fact that the problems happening in the U.S. Come as a result of the nation having a favorable migration law?
First of all, anybody that hears Akile talk is not surprised that he took his back to the top of the level. Unfortunately, Akile, you are not typical of the millions of illegals who have come into the country, many of whom are illiterate not only in English, but also in Spanish. They're not destined to become bank managers, and I think they're not going to bring the same kind of success story that you brought to bear. Now, I will agree with Achille that I too will look forward to the French whining and complaining when they have to move to Kenya and their cheese is melting and their wine is hot, and they're having to complain about being the others in another country. And you mentioned the decline of the French economy right now, and Dr. Chaudhry mentioned Germany as well. I mean, they are losing their industrialization in part because they are creating this fear factor of Russia to justify holding together against the evil Russians who are going to take Berlin and Paris and London if they're not stopped before they get to Kiev, even though on the other hand, they're arguing that they can't conquer East Ukraine. So which is it? Are they that powerful or are they that weak? Which is it? So it's to create a fear that keeps Europe bound together as their economies are collapsing. And by spending 2 or 3 or 4 times the amount for gas or oil, they're destroying their economies. And as Achille pointed out, BRICS is on the rise. And the West has ignored that. The West has poo-pooed that, I think, to our own detriment. And if the West does not wake up soon, you're going to see more of the de-dollarization that already has some of the countries in Africa trading in the yuan, trading in other currencies that will put more, certainly more at risk. Now, to Clarice, to your question, I think that one of the things that we have to recognize is that as Dr. Chaudhry mentioned, nationalization is not always a bad thing, depending on how you are imposing it. I have absolutely no problem with somebody leading Kenya or Uganda or Congo or Rwanda to make Kenya great again, to make Rwanda great again. That's what leaders should be doing. The question is there a zero-sum game where we only advance at your loss? And I think that there has to be some recognition that we can all advance without hurting someone else. And I think nobody in the West should decry countries in Africa in particular taking advantage of the resources that have been raped and robbed for centuries and diverted. And if those resources are used to make Congo great again, to make Uganda great again, and that leads to a democratization, that leads to more freedom, that leads to more wealth and prosperity, I'm 100% in favor of that. And I've expressed that to my class, Akila.
Thank you. I love it. When you say that, this is what I want to hear. Give the background perspective. It helps to understand what is going on. Thank you.
And I think my class hates the French as much as I do now.
No, don't use the word hate. I don't like to. I'm not hating. You said something important there. We can all live. It's not a zero-sum game. I like that what you said. You don't have to be rich and by trying to be rich make other people poor. You can all share the wealth. There's enough on this planet that God gave us.
And that ties a lot, Ashil Aki. That ties a lot with the philosophy of Globus to see how to chart a future that will be inclusive with the population of the global population. And that is why today we are looking at what scope of faith for the future of the global society if today we begin to see one another as being a threat to us in terms of protecting our jobs or probably ensuring that the country is being actually developed by its own citizens having the primary benefits of it. But then how do we bring the philosophy of international cooperation, be it politically, economically, socially, to its great importance? If today we develop biased tendencies of thinking that people of different origins already pose a problem to us even before integration, to understand their own philosophy about life, and it also challenges globalization. When the proponents of globalization started this philosophy, it's all about the movement of people, goods, and services. And then, how can we thrive in an environment where policies put in place by humans do not favor humans for the realization of the set agenda? And it brings us again to understanding better the role of government. Let us take this challenge.
Clarice, let me just interject because I'm going to have to leave in just a moment. But
Okay.
you are exactly right, and I think panels like this, conversations like this, with my friend Akili, with my friend Professor Chatri, people get along pretty well. We may have disagreements. Akile and I may disagree on the details. Professor Chatri and I may disagree on a few things, but conversation leads to resolution and cooperation. And governments don't get along very well. They're not suited to get along. People all over the world get along pretty well when they get to know each other, when they actually talk and listen. And I think, again, I appreciate what Globus does with panels like this, and Clarice bringing people together with sometimes different viewpoints. But as we talk, we find we also share commonality of views and how to get to the same solution, and even if we disagree on the pathway. Achille may think, oh, we want to drive down this interstate to get there. I want to drive down this one because I think there's going to be less traffic. But we often have the same goal of where we're going, and we shouldn't have these conflicts simply because of the pathway to get there. And I think that, again, I appreciate you and what Globus does, Pan-Africa Media does in bringing disparate views. I try to do it, Achille, in my classroom as well, because I want my students to learn to think, not like me, but to learn to think. And I think that we're hopefully accomplishing that. But again, I think having conversations, people do fine if we get together over a meal in many cases. That works out. Governments really stink at it. And that's why we've got to get past governments to get to people. And again, I'm going to have to dash, but I appreciate you, my friends. And Achille, I'll have you in class soon via Zoom or otherwise. And Dr. Khatri, I want you to join us and give us some perspective of India as well. I'm teaching, by the way, international business at Belmont University and have 18 students who are having so much fun, in part, Achille, because they're hearing from voices all over the world, whereas Julia Berg, Angie Wong, who worked in China, Inda Brady, who works in Turkey. They're getting to hear voices in a classroom in the U.S. that they are never given access to, and they're all shocked and amazed that, you know, any crazy professor like me would do that. And I appreciate you guys. And Clarice, thank you again for bringing me in. I'm going to have to dash, but I will talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your viewpoints. And hopefully you will visit maybe the African continent or any other countries to understand the integration, the natural integration that happens. And I think this platform continues to bring us constructive analysis to see how we can bring a different narratives to the traditional narratives, which are largely, antagonistic in nature. And this brings us to a particular example, which I was coming forth to it with you, Mr. Ashil Eke. Now the challenge goes to governments, particularly in Africa. You know, Botswana, according to a report, Botswana has launched a citizenship by investment program. And I think this boils down to understanding how the country has given importance to this, human collaboration or correlation to ensure that there is growth and development in the country. So how can we analyze this pertaining to our country, a topic for discussion, I beg your pardon, and how this will help to educate, global politicians who feel like to be able to gain a burden of command, it is imperative to ensure in a nationalistic tendencies that will kill the respect for humans.
No, I think it's people who think like that, they are on the wrong path, because now we see that the world cannot, people can't live by themselves. You cannot be happy by yourself. You cannot, have all your needs met by living in autarky, in living by yourself. So many countries in Africa, and I'm glad to see that, are changing, or they understand better. And I think this is a lesson they're teaching to the Western countries. They are removing all these visa barriers that used to be an impediment for trade, for travel, for tourism. And we see countries like Kenya, countries like Ghana, Burkina Faso, Benin. I mean, so many different countries nowadays that are offering opportunities because government hasn't many governments understand more and more today that those barriers, they're not helpful. The more people come to your country, they bring ideas, they bring resources, they bring money, they bring all kind of businesses that generates revenue for the country and then helps the country grow in terms of GDP. So these are all important policy decisions that those countries are taking that are really having a positive effect. And I think it's wrong-headed for a president, whether you are a nationalist or whatever, to try to close your doors to foreigners, to other people from coming to your countries. I mean, you're the one losing. When we look at tariffs that Trump has been putting on many countries, now he put a 50% tariff on India. Mr. Dr. Yagdish, what is that? Trying to force India not to buy Russian oil because the Russian oil satisfies the needs of India's industry, development, and things like that. But he wants to stop that. So those are not acceptable nowadays. And people are getting fed up with all these wrong-headed decisions by some government leaders. And so it's important that we all understand that, we have enough. And this is one thing that Steve said earlier. There's enough. It's not a zero-sum game. There's enough on this planet to feed all the 7 billion people and even more on this planet. We don't have to kill people or to or steal from other people to be able to get our needs met. No, we can share, we can talk, discuss, and then trade. And then remove all these barriers from from people traveling. Because if you're not happy living in Europe, you can decide I'm gonna go live in Kenya. And you get to Kenya, you see that okay, life is easier there. There are a lot of crops, natural crops, everything is going well, and you're happy, you stay there. And then one day you're tired, you want to go to US, you go to US. And then same thing, US person wants to go to India and then stay there for as long as he wants. And then it just all we care about is security, make sure that you don't create some harm to other people. But as long as you're a normal citizen, you can travel all over the world. We should be able to travel all over the world and get our needs met without having to fight and kill. Because so far, all the killings have proven, to be zero. It's not useful. All these people that were killed in Iraq, in Vietnam, in India, in all different parts of the world, it's resulted in what? Nothing. Because we could have achieved where we are today just by talking to each other, by having diplomatic conversation, by respecting other people's cultures and values, systems, and things like that. We could have achieved the same thing. It may be even better. But by killing other people, why do you need to kill somebody to have something? No, you can just ask him, hey, how do you get this? And then show me how to get that myself. And then he shows you how to get it, and then you do it, you get it, and then you're happy. You don't have to kill him to take what he has. There's no point. The same thing if you feel you live in an area where it's too cold and you want to go in an area where it's warm. What do? You take a plane and
that philosophy, Mr. Ashil Ike, to see if we can have that unity in diversity at the international level and ensure, strong public policies that will reduce the number of wars we have in the world, but rather will promote more of people-to-people diplomacy and a more subtle and peaceful diplomacy that will give meaning to the international conventions on human rights, which actually underlines that there is need for governments to respect people, even migrants, irrespective of their legal status, and also for the need to ensure global integration. But then, with political divergence and new school of
This
thoughts.
I tried to help.
So she's back.
Okay, we're sorry for that interruption, and that was coming now to the question with you, Professor Jagdish, to see how we can relate in diversity and adopt a more subtle diplomacy that favors human-to-human connections. That will change the patterns of international relations. Why not, geopolitics? As far as the issue of movement of people is concerned. Professor
Yeah, I
Jagdish,
think
yeah.
sky is yeah, sky is large enough for everybody to grow simultaneously, and we need to increase the size of the cake rather than fighting on the size of the pie. And the way things are going, the way BRICS Plus is gaining strength, the way Global South is putting itself again, the way African Union is working hard to bring all African nations on one platform, I mean, things are changing. And the way Europeans are now getting doubtful about their own future and their relationship with NATO, I mean, things are changing. And it's a multilateral world now. The multilateralism is there to grow. Its time has come. And there will be alignments at different levels. Like India is good with Russia also, India is good with US also, and India is good with all Global South also, and now improving relations with China also. So there has to be an understanding that we have got only one planet and we have to live together. There's no other option but to live peacefully. Now, whatever ceasefire has happened after some talks in Cairo, that could have happened earlier without killing 65,000 people and without ruining the whole of Gaza. And now there will be fight for contracts for reconstruction. So, I mean, we have to see it in a broader angle, and steps like weaponization of tariffs or closing of borders or increasing the fees for H-1B visa, etc. These are all counterproductive measures, and they are going to ultimately harm US itself. That there will be shortage of skilled people over there, as accusers have said. And by increasing tariffs, American population will be buying at higher prices. So, I mean, we have to see that things are changing and it's not no more unipolar world. And in this case, it is the responsibility of all leaders to bring, to increase people-to-people contact through tourism, through arts, music, through films, etc., and through trade agreements of mutual beneficial way. That is the way that everybody can prosper together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it is imperative to consider people-to-people relationship in a multi-polar world. How can we talk about multipolarity if we do not inculcate major stakeholders like humans to ensuring that there is a balance between the concepts and perception across the global world. And we are almost culminating. We are starting off with you with concluding statements. It brings us to the question: with all that has been said, we just realize that it pertains to our government taking the practical decisions that will favor humanity instead of the selected few or the collective elite ruling the world. And the question is with you, Mr. Ashil Eki. How can we then balance concerns about the national security with humanitarian needs of migrants to make the world a more better place for mankind, and to bring the concept of this multipolarity to its practicality? It shouldn't just be multipolarity in terms of political discourse, but then it should wind down to the relationship between people. I think we can call that people-to-people diplomacy.
Well, we have to all go from an understanding that we are all humans, and this planet where we are allowed to go anywhere that we want. We are free people, even though some people try to prevent others from being free for their own specific needs. So once we understand that we are all human beings, that we're looking for better life, longevity, prosperity for us, for our kids, for our grandkids, and other generations, then it becomes unnecessary to put all these, barriers, for people to come to X, Y, or Z state. All these barriers are not going to prevent people from coming to your place. They're still going to come. If people want to come to your place, to your country, they will come. They will find a way to come, whether legally or illegally. You can't. There's nothing you can do about it. Now you can send them back. They will come. They will find a way to come back again.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to change anything. The U.S. wants to put millions of people out of the U.S., but guess what? They're going to find a way to come back, because Americans find a way to go to those countries and manage to take the resources, corrupt some of the government people, to take the resources that are supposed to be used to feed their own people. Those resources are being taken away. And so those people, because they can't feed their families, they have to go where they can feed their families. It's just a natural way of life. Birds do the same thing, animals do the same thing, everybody does the same thing. So it's not humans that are the most developed animals on this planet who's not going to do the same thing. No, they're going to go into sea. If they have to cross the Atlantic Ocean to go find food where the food is, they will. No one could have imagined that people could cross the Mediterranean Sea to go to Europe. But, a lot of Africans are crossing. We're not encouraging that, but we're saying they are looking for the futures. And we've seen a lot of people who have been successful, in going through those different hopes, different difficulties, but today their life is better, and that is an incentive for other people to do the same. But at the core, if each country had the free or the freedom or the leeway of making its own political, economic decisions, based on what their population needs, based on what the people in those countries need, then we will not be in the situation that we are in today. And we are in this situation today because some people are starving other people, and so it's not a fair way of living, a fair way of organizing society. If we are not fair, then guess what? We're never going to be happy. No one could be happy around unhappy people. It's not possible that you are a super rich person living in a very poor environment. That's not going to happen. You cannot be happy. You cannot be getting up in the morning and feeling happy because of that. No, that's not going to happen, because people are going to be coming at your doors. They're going to be knocking on the doors for you to give them food that you took away from where they're supposed to get their own food. And that's what's happening. So no matter how many times, you send them away, they're going to come back. That is just the truth. So, all right. So that's what I would say. So governments have to change their policies and understand that there is enough on this world, on this planet, that we can share, we can help each other, and so that people don't move. Because when you're hungry, you can't think. That is the basic existential need of humans. If you're hungry, you can't think. Once you satisfy your hunger issue, then you can think. You can make all kind of decisions that are rational, that are natural, for every human being. But until that time, what's happening today is still going to happen until all governments in the world understand that they cannot go and deprive other people from resources they need to feed themselves, and then think that those people are not going to come find those resources where they've taken them. So, thank you.
Of course, I think to make the viewpoint you just shared practical, I think it is high time that the major global stakeholders start redefining the precepts or the preamble of political discourse and of course diplomacy that will shift from interest to seeing a diplomacy that will bring about growth and prosperity of every nation. If that should be it, and it starts with education, rewriting the right narratives that will shape society. Let's go round off with you, Professor Jagdish Khatri. If with all that has been said, and of course we still see the harsh or hard stance from European Union countries and the US and others wanting to tighten their borders to build their countries internally. Now we have arrived at the conclusion that it is difficult to function alone. There is need for co-relationship among humans of the world. So how can governments or countries now collaborate more effectively to share responsibility of migrants management without actually compromising either human rights or national security?
I think we are living in an era of interdependence. Not a single country can claim to be totally independent for any kind of resources that it does not need. So we have to depend upon others for things, for goods, for services, for ideas, and for skills also. So for solving all the problems, I think 3 Ds are there important. Diversity, dialogue, and diplomacy. These 3 Ds should be followed by each and every government, every society. That one is you must respect and welcome diversity. Then have dialogue between different communities, different societies, and different nations. And exercise diplomacy rather than wars and conflicts. So these 3 Ds can solve the problem, bring people together, not only for economic sake, but together with heart. And that is the ultimate solution that can be happen, and it will be much more humanitarian way of living.
In data interdependency, diversity, dialogue, and diplomacy for the benefit of society, or ensuring people-to-people diplomacy or public policies that will favor humanity, because we live to ensure that the world is a better place for mankind. I want to thank you, gentlemen and lady, for the great insight pertaining this very fragile topic that has to do with migration and the different perceptions coming from major political stakeholders, changing narratives, and of course, Global Insight provided a platform for us to see how we can bring forth constructive conversation that can put the negative discourse to check and ensure that there is no greater polarization in impeding the concepts of globalization in multipolarity. I want to thank you still, ladies and gentlemen, for your time, and we particularly apologize for the interruptions which we could not control, but hopefully we pray to bring forth more constructive or maybe topics that will help to widen horizon and help us to redefine the policies of the world that will be suitable for mankind. Thank you so much, and I wish you a happy weekend. Indeed, it will be a decisive one for the Republic of Cameroon, as Sunday, the 12th of October, Cameroonians will be heading to the poll to cast their ballot, and wishing that the post-election period for Cameroon will be a one that will write a new trajectory of peace, stability, hope for the betterment of the country. Thank you so much.
This program was brought to you by Globals.